Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be making my first tutorial on how I make my RetroHistory corset. Please like and subscribe if you would like to see more of these in the future. For those of you who don't know me, please check out my work at RetroFolie.com, and while you're there, don't forget to take a look at the RetroHistory corset available in my shop. So now let's begin. My main fabric for this corset will be this gorgeous cotton print illustrating the abduction of Europa by Noël Nicolas Coipel, painted in 1727. I'm starting by cutting cotton twill, my printed fabric, and fusible interfacing. I always use 2 layers of interfacing on each panels of my printed fabric, so now I'm basically cutting 4 layers. I'm now cutting the cotton twill. This will be the fabric on the inside of the corset. And finally, cutting my main fabric. Since the front panels of this corset will be pattern matched, cutting this fabric takes a bit more time and technique. If you'd like to see a tutorial on pattern matching, please let me know in the comments below. So now I'm done with the cutting. Now I need to fuse the interfacing to the main fabric. So for this, I'm using my Singer steam press. I love it so much, it really reduces my ironing time a lot. Here are all the pieces placed together. The front panel will be pattern matched and the back will only be sewn normally. Oh, and by the way, I'm really happy to be working home today. Now it's time to sew. I'm starting by pattern matching the main layer. Again, please leave me a comment below if you would like a tutorial on this technique. I'm sewing to a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. I'm then adjusting the stitch length to sew a second time. This will lock the first stitch in place and make your seams a lot stronger and durable. I'm repeating all these steps with my inner layer of cotton twill. Of course, this will be faster since there's no pattern to match. Now it's time to press all my seam allowance. Starting with the inner layer, this is how it needs to be. Press the seam open, cut the excess fabric on one side only, and press again all on one side. I'm repeating these steps for my main layer as well, but I'm now cutting the opposite seam and pressing to the opposite side. This is how it looks so far. Next step is to assemble the inner and main layers together, starting with the front busk. I won't be showing the busk insertion in details here, but if you would like a tutorial on this, please let me know in the comments. Now it's time to place the waist tape. I'm hand sewing it at the waist of the inner layer. It doesn't need to be nice, it only needs to stay in place while I sew all the boning channels. Next step is to close the back panels, sewing at 1 centimeter. Then I'm turning the corset right side out to sew some boning channels. The pattern was mirrored for the back panels, so I'm just making sure everything is in place. So now that the front and back are all done, I need to secure my seams by joining both layers together so that everything is perfectly placed. I personally use pins to do this step, mostly when making an underbust corset, but I always use end stitching for a more elaborate shape. Use what's best for you. Going back to the sewing machine, I'm now sewing to 1 millimeter on both sides of every seams. So this is how it should look when you're done. The waist tape is now secure in place, so I can remove the end stitching I made earlier. Now it's time to create the boning channels. I usually like to sew them in the middle of the panels on the 3 pieces that will have the most curves. For the binding, I'll be using this blue Dupioni silk. It's very close in color to the inner layer, but since this is thinner, it will be much easier to work with and mold to the edge of the corset. I start by only sewing the bottom edge. When I'm done pinning in place, I'm stitching in the ditch by machine. Now, before sewing the top binding, I need to insert the bonings. I'm using 4 6mm wide spring steel bone for the back and 2 on the front beside the busk. The rest of the corset is boned with 6mm wide spiral bones. I like to order all of my bonings pre-cut because it really saves me time. Now I'm hand sewing the tag in place. Side note, I did sew the top binding before doing this, I just forgot to film it. Now I'm marking the placement of my grommets. I'm using a lacing bone as my guide for this. After that, I'm setting the grommets by hand press machine. This is how it looks when done. I chose this gold ribbon for the back lacing. This is the final result of the Europa corset. I really hope you enjoyed my first tutorial. Please leave me some feedbacks in the comments below and stay tuned for more of my work by subscribing.